Chapter 4364. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang found out that there was a problem with the Spirit Stone, she began to deal with the poison on the Spirit Stone. The poisons in the upper realm were all strange. Many of them had changed in the past 1,000 years, but they were still the same. Bailey Hongzhuang was still able to deal with them easily. Beichen, I've already understood the poison, but I still need to go out and buy some herbs to make the antidote. Why don't you come with me? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and looked at Di Beichen. Xiao Rojin told me the place where contract beasts can awaken their innate talent. Why don't we take Baisher to test its innate talent today? Di Beichen nodded and looked at her lovingly. Okay. Baisher was also excited when he found out that Bailey Hongzhuang was going to take him to awaken his innate talent. That's great, Master. Bailey Hongzhuang rubbed Baisher's head. He had become more and more muscular. Just looking at his appearance was enough to make many people gasp in amazement. He was no longer the cute little guy from before, but a majestic beast king. A beast king that both humans and contract beasts would fear at first glance. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walked out of the House of Raging Flames together. They were now the most eye-catching couple in the House of Raging Flames. However, after everyone knew that the two of them had such a deep relationship, many people gave them their heartfelt blessings. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the place where contract beasts' innate talents were tested. Everything here was very simple. One only needed to pay a sufficient fee to awaken their contract beast. However, after understanding the price, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but sigh. The price was really unusually high. Even though she had already expected that the price would not be cheap, this price was really amazing. Although the price here is a little expensive, everything here is very secretive. Moreover, the contract beast's attributes will not be leaked. In this aspect, they do a good job. Bailey Hongzhuang stood in the secret room, looking around at the closed room, her pretty face showing a satisfied look. The upper realm is different from the lower realm. Here, the dark attribute is disliked by the people. In order to prevent the news of the dark attribute from spreading, the upper realm is well hidden. What's more, to be able to raise a contracted beast to the point of awakening, one must have a lot of financial and material resources. Such a person must have a lot of financial resources, so it's normal for the shop to want to make a profit. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. So, we can only be the spendthrifts. It can't be helped. Di Beichen chuckled. But, my wife, you're already rich. You flatter me. When White Lion awakened his talent, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen immediately fell silent. They looked at White Lion with concern, wondering what kind of attribute White Lion would awaken. White Lion was fully focused on awakening his talent. Xiao He and Xiao Bai also looked at him curiously. Now that their talents had been awakened, only White Lion was left. I wonder what kind of attribute White Lion will awaken. Will it be the same as mine? Xiao He's eyes shone with interest. But I hope that White Lion won't be the same as mine. Otherwise, White Lion won't be able to cultivate properly. Originally, awakening the light attribute was something to be happy about. But now that Master refused to join the Holy Light Assembly, they did not have the cultivation method of the light attribute. Chapter 4365. Xiao He, don't worry. Sooner or later, there will be a way to cultivate the power of light. Xiao Bai understood Xiao He's thoughts the best. They had been together for so many years and understood each other's personalities very well. They could understand each other's thoughts just by looking at their expressions. Xiao He nodded slightly. I also believe that there will be a way. However, although staying in the Raging Flames sect is more secure, opponents may appear at any time. The D family is still eyeing us covetously. If we can't increase our powers, we won't be able to help Master. Therefore, I hope that White Lion won't end up like me. Xiao Bai could not help but sigh. I understand. The situation may not be as bad as you think. After coming to the upper realm, They had been like a small boat that could sink into the ocean at any time. The people here were not simple. Offending someone with a strong background could be a disaster for them. Not long after, a dazzling white light exploded from the crystal ball. When they saw this familiar light, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen could not help but look at each other. It seemed that the situation was just as they had thought. White Lion really did have the light attribute. I never thought that White Lion would have the same light attribute as me. Now that I think about it, it's really interesting. I wonder if this is a coincidence or if it was predestined. Bailey Hongzhuang's fair face was filled with astonishment. She could not help but be astonished. This was really too much of a coincidence. Xiao He could not help but sigh when she saw this. White Lion really does have the light attribute. However, just as everyone was confirming this, a black light suddenly appeared quietly. The black light gradually became thicker and stronger in the crystal ball. In the end, it and the light energy each occupied half of the crystal ball. Neither was weaker than the other. When they saw this, Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen, Xiao He, and Xiao Bai could not help but be stunned. They never thought that White Lion would have two attributes. The White Lion actually possesses the light and darkness attributes. After knowing this result, Bailey Hongzhuang was in disbelief. When this happened to her and Di Beichen, she already found it strange. She did not expect White Lion to be the same as them. Beast kings are so different from other demonic beasts. It's not hard to understand why their attributes are so different. Di Beichen said slowly, but its attributes are the same as ours, which proves that it is fated to be with us. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. She immediately pulled Baisher into her arms. Baisher, we are indeed on the same side. White Lion was obviously very satisfied with its attribute. Originally, it was wondering if it would have other attributes, but now it was undoubtedly most satisfied with this result. The kind of master would have the kind of contract beast. Only then would they be the most compatible. This is great. Other than Xiao He, all of us are dark type. Di Beichen shook his head and sighed. This kind of situation would make people speechless in the upper realm. He did not expect that most of them were of the same attribute. Once they had cultivated their dark-type powers, it was easy to imagine what would happen. Bailey Hongzhuang and the beasts looked at each other. They were also very helpless. Chapter 4366. You're right. This is pretty good too. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Di Beichen's current responsibility was to change the cultivator's perception of darkness. Now that they all possessed the darkness attribute, they would naturally be able to perform better in the darkness attribute. I'm actually the only one without the darkness attribute. How unfair. Xiao He was depressed. She felt like she had suddenly been excluded. Bailey Hongzhuang hugged Xiao He and pinched her chubby cheeks. Don't be depressed. We're all one. Although we don't have a way to cultivate the energy of light right now, trust me. We'll definitely find a way. Although she had decided not to join the Radiant Sacred Assembly, it did not mean that she was not prepared to cultivate the energy of light. She believed that there were many ways to cultivate and not just one. Although the Radiant Sacred Assembly could only spread the cultivation method and no one else could do so without permission, there would always be unexpected situations. If there was really no other way, she could just snatch it from other cultivators with the light attribute. It was not like she had never done something like that before. Yeah, Xiao He, we're all one. Xiao He, you don't have to be depressed. You all have the light attribute, but I don't. I'm the same as you in this aspect, Xiao Bai smiled. Xiao He's mood immediately improved when she heard everyone's consolation. She immediately nodded with a smile. You're right. It's fine as long as everyone can develop well. On the way back, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were in a very good mood. They only returned to the Raging Flames sect after buying some herbs they needed. When the cultivators of the Raging Flames sect saw how happy Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were, their eyes flickered with confusion. They could not help but feel pity and worry for Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao He. Without a cultivation method, Bailey Hongzhuang had no future. It went without saying for Di Baichen. His full attribute was indeed very enviable, but he was of the darkness attribute. From the moment that was confirmed, it meant that he no longer had any hope or future here. This was evident from the fact that there were fewer and fewer women who admired him. Everyone thought that they should be in despair right now, but the two of them just happened to be indifferent and even happy. They did not understand why. The two of them really aren't worried at all. They're actually in the mood to go out and play at a time like this. Perhaps they've given up. There's no hope anyway. There's no hope. Don't look at how happy they are. Maybe they're just faking it. Who knows how much pain they're suffering in their hearts. At this moment, Wanyan Han couldn't help but frown as he walked over. What does it have to do with you? Stop worrying over nothing. Disperse, disperse. If you have the time to talk about others, focus on cultivating, said Yi Haomiao. Only when everyone dispersed did Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao walk over to Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao He. They comforted them with concern. Are you all right? These people just like to gossip. Don't worry about them. Chapter 43-67. Looking at how calm Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen were, Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao couldn't help but sigh at how strong their mental fortitude was. If ordinary people were in their shoes, they would definitely look worried and gloomy. However, the two of them acted as if nothing had happened, as if nothing had affected them at all. It really wasn't easy. However, the two of them weren't stupid. They already understood the current situation. Junior sister, junior brother Di, what do you plan to do in the future? Wanyan Han's eyes were filled with worry. Now, even he couldn't help but feel distressed. After rejecting the cultivation method of the Holy Light Assembly and not having the cultivation method of the Dark Energy, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen were no different from having their wings broken. It might be fine for a short period of time, but after a long time they would really be treading on thin ice in the upper realm. Don't worry about us, we'll find a way. Di Baichen's handsome face was as calm as water. We'll find the cultivation method of the dark energy. Hearing Di Baichen's words, Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao weren't optimistic at all. The inheritance of the dark energy disappeared long ago when the dark forces were annihilated. After so many years, many dark attribute cultivators have tried to find it, but to no avail. It's really too difficult for you to find the inheritance of the dark energy on your own. Wanyan Han sighed. In his opinion, the inheritance of the dark energy might have completely disappeared from the entire world long ago. Wanyan Han is right. If it could be found, it would have been found long ago. Do you think those dark attribute cultivators don't want to hold their heads high? It's just that they can't find a way, so they can only live in silence. Yi Haomiao couldn't help but say. Yi Haomiao also couldn't help but speak. He didn't want to attack Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen. He just wanted them to not be too naive. If they pinned their hopes on such an illusory thing, they would definitely be disappointed in the future. Senior brothers, I know that everything you've said is for our own good, but there's no better way now, is there? Bailey Hongzhuang gazed at Wanyan Han and Baichen. Both she and Baichen felt very fortunate to have two friends who cared about them from the bottom of their hearts in the upper realm. With Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao were at a loss for words. Everything was as Bailey Hongzhuang had said. They didn't have any better ideas. Little junior sister, why don't you try to think of another way to join the Holy Light Assembly? Wanyan Han still felt that it was a pity for Bailey Hongzhuang to give up like this. If she could join the Holy Assembly, then their situation would be much better than now. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. There's no need to try. The vice president is very insistent, and I don't intend to bother with her. Although a great man knows when to yield and when to stand tall, I'm a little girl. I don't intend to lower my head to her. Upon seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's determined look, Wanyan Han sighed faintly and said, If there's anything we can help with, you must tell us. Thank you, senior brother. We will. Oh right, the D family seems to still be in Rome and City. However, they have been much more well-behaved recently and haven't taken the initiative to cause trouble, Yi Haomiao said slowly. Didn't you run into them when you went out today? Chapter 4368. They suffered a loss at our hands last time, so I don't think they'll dare to find trouble with us anytime soon. Di Baichen said slowly, however, all of you should stay in the Fiery Flame sect for the time being. Don't go out. They might find trouble with us at any time. Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao nodded at Di Baichen's words. Bailey Hongzhuang was an inscription master. Not only did she have the Fiery Flame sect's support, but Qing Zonghao also thought highly of her. Under such circumstances, the Di family would not dare to act rashly. However, compared to them, it was a different story. They did not have a powerful backer like Bailey Hongzhuang, so it would be much easier for the Di family to attack them. Therefore, under the current circumstances, it was better for them to stay in the Fiery Flame sect for the time being. We understand, so we'll stay here for the time being. Wanyan Han nodded. However, there will be an opportunity to go out and train in a few days. We'll all go out. What opportunity? Bailey Hongzhuang looked up, her bright eyes flickering with astonishment. She had not heard of this before. We just heard about it. The exact time has not been set, but we might all go together. However, it won't be just the Fiery Flame sect's cultivators. Cultivators from other sects will also go, so there might be a lot of competition. Competition for what? Di Baichen raised his long eyebrows. What treasures will there be in the training area? Actually, we're going there to explore, Yi Haomiao explained. An abyss has appeared in the mountain range north of Rong and City. The situation is not clear yet. Someone has already gone to explore it, but there are no definite results. The situation in the abyss this time is rather complicated, so we don't know whether it's good or bad. Usually, when such a situation occurs, all the sects will send cultivators to investigate. The more people there are, the more power there is. It's easier to investigate. Moreover, this is a competition between cultivators from different sections. Whoever can find out the final result will bring glory to the sect. If you perform well, you'll be rewarded when you return to the sect, even if there are no treasures there. I've already experienced this in the Inferno School. Wanyan Han added. Every once in a while, something similar will happen. Actually, it's also a competition between the various sections. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen immediately understood. There would always be some competitions between the sects to promote the progress of the cultivators. At the same time, they would be able to better understand the situation of their opponent. Whether it was in the lower realm or the upper realm, the situation was the same. We understand. Cultivate well during this period of time and strive to perform well when the time comes. All right. Looking at the backs of Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Haomiao, Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao were also filled with emotions. The so-called cultivate well was actually just to comfort themselves. Fortunately, they wouldn't be left too far behind in the short term. Bailey Hongzhuang's movements were very fast. In a short period of time, she had already detoxified the spirit stone. Now that the spirit stones were no longer poisonous, they could be used without worry. Immediately after, they began to cultivate the power of darkness. Ever since their talents were awakened, almost all the cultivators had joined guilds of their respective attributes and began to cultivate their elemental powers. Naturally, they couldn't be left behind by others. Chapter 4369. As Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Zichen transformed the primary energy in their bodies into dark energy, they felt that their primary energy was different from before. Darkness attribute practitioners are very good at hiding. Once their manipulation of dark energy is good enough, they can completely hide in the darkness, in the shadows, making it difficult for others to find them. Summoning skeleton armies is also our ability. As long as there are skeletons, we can use dark energy to summon them as our helpers. However, if we're not strong enough, we can only summon a small number of skeletons. If we're strong enough, we can summon a large number of skeletons. As Di Baichen described the characteristics of dark energy, Bailey Hongzhuang and the two beasties listened attentively. Today, Di Baichen was one of the few people in the world who had mastered the dark inheritance. If they followed what he said, they would be able to avoid detours. While they were cultivating dark energy, Xiao He didn't give up on cultivation. Instead, it began to try to cultivate light energy. It felt that it might be able to find some methods by fumbling around on its own. Following the method Bailey Hongzhuang and the others used to transform their primary energy into dark energy, Xiao He used a similar method to begin to transform light energy. Although there were slight differences between the two, they both believed that no matter how many changes there would always be some similarities between the various attributes. After starting to cultivate the power of darkness, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others entered the ocean world. Time passes slower there, and they have more time to cultivate than everyone else. Moreover, with opponents, their progress would be faster. After a period of seclusion, when Bailey Hongzhuang came out, she found that someone was looking for her. "Little junior sister, you're finally out." Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang finally open the door, Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. "Senior brother, are you looking for me?" Bailey Hongzhuang looked surprised. "Is the training about to start?" "That's not it." Wanyan Han shook his head. "Master Qing is looking for you." "Qing Zonghao?" Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang actually called Qing Zonghao by his name, Wanyan Han and Wanyan Han were slightly stunned. However, when they thought of Bailey Hongzhuang's achievements and status in the field of inscription, they understood a little. Usually, even Wu Wenfeng had to respectfully address Qing Zonghao as Master Qing when he saw him. "That's right. Master Qing sent someone to invite you a few days ago, but you were in seclusion, so he didn't disturb you. He said that he would invite you over for a chat after you came out of seclusion. He didn't expect that you wouldn't come out of seclusion for several days," Wanyan Han said slowly. They lived next door to Bailey Hongzhuang. As long as there was any movement, they would be the first to notice it. After hearing some noises, they opened the door to take a look. Sure enough, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen had already come out. "I see." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Since the last time she saw Qing Zonghao, she knew that Qing Zonghao would definitely find a chance to talk to her. "Little junior sister, do you want to go and take a look?" Wanyan Han couldn't help but ask. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment and replied, "I'll go and meet him." Previously, when Qing Zonghao came to invite her, she had already rejected him once. Last time outside the Raging Flames sect, Qing Zonghao could be considered to have helped her. Chapter 4370. Wanyan Han nodded. Judging from the situation last time, Master Qing doesn't have any ill intentions towards you. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and declined to comment. She couldn't make a conclusion too early on this matter. Needless to say, Qing Zonghao came to find her time and time again to get something from her. If there were no benefits with Qing Zonghao's status, he wouldn't put in so much effort. As for what he wanted, she wasn't sure at the moment. The last time they met, Qing Zonghao did have a good attitude. However, if she rejected him, the situation would be uncertain. "Wife, are you sure you want to go?" After Wanyan Han and Bailey Hongzhuang left, Di Baichen spoke slowly. He also thought of the problem. "Even if I don't go now, Qing Zonghao will find a way to see me. Since I have to face him sooner or later, I might as well go earlier." "I'll go with you," Di Baichen said. "Okay." Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen walked out of the Raging Flames sect. They asked a random person and found out where Qing Zonghao lived. As the only inscription master in the city, Qing Zonghao was undoubtedly very famous. His mansion was also very luxurious. After they reported their names, the servant immediately brought Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Hongzhuang into the mansion. Obviously, someone had already informed them beforehand. Please wait here for a moment. I'll go and invite Master Cheng. The servant poured tea for Bailey Hongzhuang and said respectfully, Okay. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Cheng Zhonghao's servant was indeed very polite to them. However, she didn't know why Cheng Zhonghao was looking for her. Logically speaking, Cheng Zhonghao was also an inscription master. He shouldn't have any requests for her. Could it be that he just wanted to rope her in? Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking, Cheng Zhonghao's figure appeared in their line of sight. Miss Bailey, Master D, I'm sorry for not going out to meet you. Cheng Zhonghao walked in with a face full of smiles. His attitude was polite and courteous. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen cupped their hands. Master Cheng is too polite. With your status, you must be very busy. Actually, I'm also an idle person. Cheng Zhonghao smiled. Please have a seat. The taste of the tea in my mansion is quite good. It is indeed a good tea. Master Cheng, why? Is there anything that? Bailey Hongzhuang's face was calm as she calmly asked. Was? Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Cheng Zhonghao chuckled. Miss Bailey is really a straightforward person. Since you're so straightforward, I won't hide it. Actually, with Miss Bailey's ability, you can establish your own sect. If we join forces, the inscriptions in the entire Rong and city will belong to the two of us. Do you want to stay in the Raging Flames sect? To be honest, inscriptions are just my side job. What I value more is cultivation. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Thank you for your appreciation, Master Cheng. Actually, I don't have many inscriptions now. I only gave a small amount to the Raging Flames sect. Chapter 4371. Cheng Zhonghao, who had been puzzled by Bailey Hongzhuang, immediately understood after hearing her words. It turned out that Bailey Hongzhuang valued cultivation the most instead of inscriptions. This thought had undoubtedly far exceeded his expectations. Generally speaking, between an inscription master and a cultivator, anyone would choose the first one because it would be much easier to walk on this road. He didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would actually prefer the latter. In this way, it was easy to understand Bailey Hongzhuang's choice. So Miss Bailey values cultivation the most. Cheng Zhonghao nodded, however, even if you leave the Blazing Flames sect, you can still cultivate. Actually, with your current situation, although the Blazing Flames sect can help you solve some problems, they can't help you too much. From what I know, you've run into trouble in the Holy Assembly, but the Blazing Flames sect can't help you solve it, right? That's right. Bailey Hongzhuang replied, Actually, this isn't the Blazing Flames sect's problem. It's a conflict between me and the Vice President of the Holy Assembly. I can't agree to her request, so it's useless no matter who comes forward to solve this problem. However, Cheng Zhonghao waved his hand. No, I can help you solve this problem. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were stunned when they heard this. Their eyes flashed with astonishment. You can solve it? That's right. Cheng Zhonghao smiled confidently. The president of the Holy Assembly went out of town a few days ago and will be back in a few days. I have a good relationship with him, so as long as I come forward, I guarantee that I can solve this problem for you. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. If someone else had said this, they would not have cared at all. They would have thought that the person was just painting a pie in the sky. However, with Cheng Zhonghao's identity and position, it was indeed possible for him to do this. Moreover, there was no need for him to exaggerate his abilities. If that was the case, it would be a good thing for them. Master Cheng, we're all sensible people. Since that's the case, why don't we speak frankly? What do you want? Bailey Hongzhuang's Black Phoenix eyes flashed with a sharp light. She was very clear that Cheng Zhonghao wouldn't help her so much for no reason. As early as when Cheng Zhonghao came to find her time and time again, she understood that the other party must want to get something from her. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Cheng Zhonghao could not help but chuckle. Can't I do it for the sake of our friendship? Hee hee. Bailey Hongzhuang also laughed out loud. Master Ching, I'm not a greenhorn. I've long given up on this kind of pie falling from the sky. The world had always been fair. If you wanted to get something, you would have to pay a price. You're a busy person. I believe that you won't waste your time on me for this so-called friendship. Why don't you just tell me what you want? This way, we can see if we can make an exchange of conditions? Bailey Hongzhuang's delicate jade-like face was filled with a bright smile. Her expression was calm and her eyes were clear. It was just a business discussion. It was useless to say anything more. What mattered was whether their conditions were suitable. Chapter 43-72. Miss Bailey, putting all of this aside, I really admire you. Ching Zhonghao's gaze was sincere. Nowadays, there were not many young people whom he admired. However, he had admired Bailey Hongzhuang since the first time he had met her. This cultivator from the lower realm obviously did not have any background, but she had been able to take advantage of it. Logically speaking, it would have been very easy for the D family to deal with two cultivators from the lower realm. However, after meeting Bailey Hongzhuang, everything had become impossible. This was not the D family's problem, but Bailey Hongzhuang was smart enough. Just like how she was talking to him now, Bailey Hongzhuang was also very smart. She understood the rules of this world too well. Furthermore, he could not ignore Di Beichen, who was beside Bailey Hongzhuang. Although Di Beichen had not spoken much ever since he had arrived, his deep and wise gaze made him understand that he had also seen through everything. He had just not said anything. Di Beichen had also been paying attention to their surroundings. If there was any unhappiness between them, he was already prepared to leave with Bailey Hongzhuang immediately. This young man was very protective of Bailey Hongzhuang. Thank you, Master Ching. I feel very honored to be admired by you. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Master Ching, I am a very simple person. You can tell me what you want directly. Since you are so straightforward, I will not say any more nonsense. Ching Zhonghao's expression became serious. I want to know the person behind you. As soon as Ching Zhonghao finished speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other without batting an eyelid. They were secretly criticizing him in their hearts, but they did not reveal any clues on the surface. They had come to the upper realm alone and without any help. It was no longer a secret that they did not have any background. Everyone was very clear about this situation. What exactly had made Ching Zhonghao mistakenly think that they actually had a background? Master Ching, what do you mean? Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm as she looked at Ching Zhonghao in confusion. It was obvious that she did not understand what he meant. In fact, she really did not understand. However, in Ching Zhonghao's eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang was deliberately pretending. In his heart, he felt that Bailey Hongzhuang's disguise was not bad. I have seen your inscriptions. You should know about this, right? Ching Zhonghao smiled faintly. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I know. When I first saw your inscriptions, I realized that your inscriptions had reached a perfect level. This was something that I had been trying to achieve all these years. Unfortunately, after spending so much time, I was still unable to do so. Thus, when I discovered that you were able to do so, I was pleasantly surprised. Ching Zhonghao said while observing Bailey Hongzhuang's expression. Sure enough, when he said this, he realized that Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed a little. Bailey Hongzhuang had never understood why Ching Zhonghao, who was also an inscription master, would pursue her so closely. Now, she finally understood. It turned out that the inscriptions that Ching Zhonghao had not yet reached the level of skill, so he had been so persistent. This was where the problem lay. Chapter 43-73. Although Bailey Hongzhuang found it strange that Ching Zhonghao would give her a master out of nowhere, she thought about it carefully and understood his thoughts. With her current age, it was already surprising that her inscription technique could reach such a level. Moreover, she could do things that Ching Zhonghao couldn't, so it was normal for him to think so. Thinking about it, if it was anyone else, they would have the same opinion. In fact, she did have a master, and this master was abnormally strong, and that was the Chaos Ring. Thinking about this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly, then nodded and said, "Master Qing, you're right, I do have a master." Di Beichen also nodded quietly. At this time, bringing up a groundless master wasn't a bad thing for Bailey Hongzhuang. On the contrary, it was a good thing. Only Cheng Zonghao thought that they had a strong enough backing, so he wouldn't dare to act against them. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang admitted this point, Cheng Zonghao's face revealed a joyful smile. It seemed that his guess was wrong. "I have some questions to ask your master. I wonder if you can introduce me to him?" Cheng Zonghao's eyes revealed a trace of anticipation. Ever since he knew of Bailey Hongzhuang's ability in inscription technique, he had wanted to pay a visit to Bailey Hongzhuang's master. Before this, he also thought of directly capturing Bailey Hongzhuang and learning the inscription technique from her. However, after thinking about it, he gave up on this idea. Because, just from this inscription technique, he could tell that her master's background wasn't simple. If he offended such a big figure, it wouldn't be beneficial to him. If the other party was angry and came to find trouble with him, he might not be able to withstand his own anger. In this way, he might as well build a good relationship with Bailey Hongzhuang, and through Bailey Hongzhuang's recommendation, he might be able to get a better result. Bailey Hongzhuang pretended to be deep in thought for a moment, then said, "My master has always been very good to me, Master Qing. You've helped me before, so I believe that my master should be willing to meet you. However, my master has something to do and isn't here recently." Hearing this, Cheng Zonghao was slightly disappointed. He really couldn't wait to meet that master. "If my master was here, I wouldn't be restrained by the Di family. Actually, I understand that he left for a period of time to give me space to grow. Otherwise, if I was always under his protection, it would be difficult for me to grow by myself. Master Qing, don't you think so?" Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's explanation, Cheng Zonghao finally understood. "You're right, young people should have the opportunity to rely on themselves. Your master is for your own good, he really cares of you. Actually, he's If it wasn't for him, it would be hard for me to imagine my current state." Saying this, Bailey Hongzhuang said, "Master Qing, if my master comes back, I'll definitely recommend you to him, but I'm afraid you'll have to wait for a while." Cheng Zonghao waved his hand. "No problem, I can wait." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "All right, I'll inform you when my master comes back." Chapter 4374. "Master Qing, you're too polite. You've helped me before. What I'm doing is just a small matter." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. For a moment, Cheng Zonghao felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was more and more pleasing to the eye. Originally, he was worried that Bailey Hongzhuang would hide it from him and not be willing to tell him. He didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be such a straightforward person. However, when he recalled how Bailey Hongzhuang treated her two friends, he understood. If my information is correct, the president of the Radiant Sacred Assembly will be back tomorrow. When he's back, I'll introduce you to him. Don't worry, Gong Tianfeng is only the vice president. The president has the most authority. In fact, Gong Tianfeng's actions have already made many people unhappy. It has affected the Radiant Sacred Assembly to a certain extent. Moreover, your attribute talent is so outstanding. The president has no reason to reject you. Cheng Zonghao's eyes flashed with a sharp light. His aura was released. He was very confident about this. Looking at Cheng Zonghao's confident look, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and cupped her hands. "Thank you, Master Qing. I really don't see eye to eye with this vice president. I thought that it would be impossible for me to join the Radiant Sacred Assembly. If Master Qing has a way, I'll be very grateful." Although she was unhappy with Gong Tianfeng, she wouldn't joke about her future. As long as they could obtain the cultivation method of the light attribute, it would be a good thing for them. Moreover, Shi, Di Baichen, Baisher, and Xiao He all had the light attribute. If they could cultivate the light attribute, their battle strength would definitely increase greatly. Don't worry. Wait for my news. Goodbye. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen stood up and left Qing Zhonghao's residence. After achieving his goal, Qing Zhonghao didn't invite Bailey Hongzhuang to join him. In fact, just like what Bailey Hongzhuang said, the inscriptions in the entire Rong and city belonged to him, which was undoubtedly the best. Bailey Hongzhuang was only in charge of the Raging Flame School's inscriptions, which wouldn't affect him much. After leaving Qing Zhonghao's mansion, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen looked at each other and smiled. I thought that we would face a dragon's pool and a tiger's den this time. I didn't expect it to be so easy. On the contrary, we got a big gift. You can rest assured now. Di Baichen chuckled. He knew that although Bailey Hongzhuang had rejected the Holy Light Assembly, she still cared about this matter. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't want her future to be affected by a woman she hated. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Isn't that good? Since Qing Zhonghao is so confident, I think this matter will most likely succeed. It will definitely succeed, Di Baichen said with certainty. However, you have to go back and face that disgusting woman again. Are you okay with that? No problem. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. She said she wouldn't let me in, but I went in anyway. The person who should be the most unhappy should be her, not me. If I can stimulate her and make her understand that the Holy Light Assembly doesn't belong to her alone, why wouldn't I do it? Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. If she could make her opponent unhappy, she would be happy. Good move. Di Baichen nodded. That vice president will have a headache after meeting my wife. I'll take it as a compliment. Chapter 4375. The sky was clear and the sun was shining brightly. After solving the problem that had been troubling them for a while, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen were in a good mood. They did not rush back to the Blazing Flames sect immediately. Instead, they went to the restaurant. However, they did not expect to meet someone they did not want to meet on the way. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the woman in front of her with a trace of disgust in her clear black and white eyes. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Baichen also looked at her. It was an unfamiliar face. He had never seen her before. However, looking at the other party's age and Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude, he had already guessed the other party's identity. This is the vice president of the Holy Assembly? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That's right, it's her. Gong Tianfeng naturally saw Bailey Hongzhuang as well. Not only that, Xiao Rojin, who was beside her, also noticed her. Junior sister Bailey, are you going to the restaurant to eat? Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Xiao Rojin's face immediately revealed a friendly smile. Her gaze quietly fell on Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen's hands that were held together. Immediately, the smile on her face became even brighter. Yes, I didn't expect to meet senior sister so coincidentally. It's a coincidence that we met. Why don't we sit down and eat together? Xiao Rojin invited. However, before Bailey Hongzhuang could reply, Gong Tianfeng's voice had already sounded. Then there's no need. I feel disgusted when I see such a self-deprecating person, let alone eat together. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also looked at Gong Tianfeng. Her voice was cold and disdainful. Vice President, do you not have eyes? Are you using your nose to replace the function of your eyes? As soon as these words were said, Gong Tianfeng's face darkened. Anger flashed in her eyes. What nonsense are you talking about? Look at how arrogant you are. How can others see your eyes? They can only see two big nostrils. Gong Tianfeng's face changed, and her high head lowered a little. Her eyes then looked at Di Baichen. I was wondering why you didn't want to break up with him. It turns out that he's quite good-looking. Xiao Bai face. No wonder you like him. However, if you give up your future for a man, you will definitely regret it. At that time, even if you cry and beg me to let you join the Holy Light Assembly, I won't give you the chance. You don't have to worry about that. That day won't come. Bailey Hongzhuang retorted, for a guy like you who only looks at attributes and not people, talking about feelings is equivalent to talking nonsense. Back then, you left your husband for your so-called laughable reason, and now you feel happy? From the looks of it, you're going to spend the rest of your life alone. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiao Rojin and the others' expressions changed. They didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to even bring up Gong Tianfeng's past. Darkness attribute cultivators are synonymous with depravity. My choice back then was very correct. Even now, I still feel that it was very correct. You, on the other hand, are stubborn. Sooner or later, you will regret it. Seeing that Gong Tianfeng had already integrated this view into her bones, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but shake her head. At this point, it was useless even if she said anything more. This woman was so stubborn that she wouldn't listen to anything. Chapter 4376. So what if you're of the dark attribute? Di Beichen's gaze was cold and eerie. If the dark attribute has fallen, then is your appearance an infinite radiance? Hearing Di Beichen's words, Gong Tianfeng was momentarily at a loss for words. Following that, the corners of her lips curled into a cold smile as she arrogantly said, "People of the dark attribute don't deserve to speak to me." Following Gong Tianfeng's words, one of the cultivators in the restaurant could not help but stand up and angrily said, "Who do you think you are, old woman? Did a dark attribute cultivator kill your entire family or something? Don't think that you're so great just because you're of the light attribute. Looking down on people of the dark attribute, why don't you take a look in the mirror and see who you are?" The sudden appearance of the man caused Gong Tianfeng to be stunned. Clearly, she did not expect that someone else would suddenly appear while she was talking to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but look at the other party. After seeing the angry look on the other party's face, she already understood. Come to think of it, the other party must also be a dark attribute cultivator. After hearing Gong Tianfeng's ridicule, he could not help but stand up. "That's right, old woman of the radiant sacred assembly. You're vicious and think highly of yourself. I've long been displeased with you. You really think you're so great." Another cultivator stood up. "I'm of the dark attribute, so what? What does it have to do with you? Come to think of it, we're too lazy to talk to you. We feel that it's a waste of time to talk to a person like you who reeks of stench from head to toe." After seeing this scene, the other cultivators in the restaurant could not help but whisper to each other. "Although I'm not a dark attribute cultivator, the words of this vice president of the Radiant Sacred Assembly are really too harsh. That incident happened so long ago. Even if there's a mistake, it's the fault of those dark attribute cultivators in the past. What does it have to do with the people now? It's already very unfortunate that they haven't been able to develop well because of this. This woman's attitude is actually so exaggerated. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't be able to stand it. I think this Bailey Hongzhuang is right. This woman wants to be alone for the rest of her life. That's why she wants to break up the affectionate couple and separate others." Words of disdain and ridicule fell into Gong Tianfeng's ears. Even as stubborn as she was so angry that her hands were trembling. She was speechless for a moment. "Bailey Hongzhuang, our sacred assembly will never accept you." After Gong Tianfeng said those words angrily, she looked at Xiao Ruojin. "Let's go. She's, but she didn't expect things turned out it how it turned out, she didn't expect things, her for her. Of it. Her. She. When she her too. Hers. Don's hers are for what? Gong Tianfeng roared. "As long as I'm in the sacred assembly, Don't even think about joining. Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands and shrugged nonchalantly. We'll see. Alright, we'll see. It wasn't until Gong Tianfeng left that the restaurant regained its silence. Chapter 4377. Di Beichen smiled faintly and shook his head. It's not worth it to affect my mood for such a person. Master, I'm really looking forward to seeing Gong Tianfeng's expression when Master Qing and the President of the Holy Light Assembly agree to let you join. Xiao He gloated. Just now, she said that as long as she's here, she won't let you join. This woman is so determined. What if she fights with the President? Will it affect things? Xiao Bai was a little worried. The most important thing right now was to obtain the cultivation method of the Holy Light energy. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Gong Tianfeng had said so much today. If she joined the Holy Light Assembly, it would be a heavy slap to her face. Don't worry, it won't affect things. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand tightly. Cheng Zonghao looked like he was going to win. His relationship with the President of the Holy Light Assembly should be very deep. Moreover, from his attitude when he mentioned Gong Tianfeng, he seems to be somewhat disdainful of her. If my judgment is correct, although Gong Tianfeng is the Vice President, the President might not like her very much. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. You're so sure? Di Beichen smiled mysteriously. If you don't believe me, then just wait and see. In the private room, they ordered a table of delicious food and wine. Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen, and the four beasties ate happily. Xiao Xuanzi's strength had greatly improved. Previously, it had been bullied by the three beasties. Now, it finally had the right to speak for itself. Finally, it no longer had to be bullied by them. Just as they walked out of the restaurant, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen saw DeVows and Di Sudong walking towards them. These two must have heard the news and rushed over. Bailey Hongzhuang lowered her voice. Previously, they had a big conflict with Gong Tianfeng, so it was normal for DeVows and the rest to receive the news. Let's see what they want to do first. Di Beichen calmly pulled Bailey Hongzhuang behind him. His handsome face was covered with frost as he looked at DeVows. However, DeVows and Di Sudong pretended to be passing by. When they got closer, they looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Sudong with resentment. Bailey Hongzhuang, I heard that you've been rejected by the Holy Light Assembly. I thought I would be able to soar into the sky, but I didn't expect it to be useless. This is really embarrassing. DeVows had a mocking look on his face. He was already very unhappy that he had lost face in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Later on, he had been blackmailed by Bailey Hongzhuang, so one could imagine how unhappy he was. You don't have to worry about that. It wasn't easy to get rid of the poison, but you can't wait to jump around. Be careful not to get poisoned again. If that happens, it won't be something that can be resolved with 150,000 spirit stones, Bailey Hongzhuang retorted. DeVows' face fell when he heard this. This was what he didn't want to hear the most. You took the D family's spirit stones and now you're running out to have fun. You're really comfortable. Di Sudong's eyes narrowed. He also wanted to know if Bailey Hongzhuang had used the D family's spirit stones after such a long time. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Sudong might not have understood the purpose of their trip, but now they understood after hearing Di Sudong's words. Chapter 4378. This kind of trick is too low level. It's useless against me. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was languid, as if she was talking about something that was not worth mentioning at all. If you want to deal with me, you'd better think of some better moves first. With that, Bailey Hongzhuang held on to Di Beichen's arm and brushed past DeVows. When the cultivators present heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words, their faces were filled with confusion. They did not understand what she meant. Only DeVows and Di Sudong, who had remained on the spot, understood Bailey Hongzhuang's meaning. As it turned out, Bailey Hongzhuang had already known about them and knew that they had poisoned the spiritual stones. She had even thought of a way to deal with it long ago. It was just that they were kept in the dark. They still remembered the disdain and ridicule that appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's face when she had left. "Second uncle, what do we do now?" Devao's expression was extremely ugly. He did not know why, but when he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang now, he actually had the misconception that he could not defeat her. She was clearly a cultivator from the lower realm. No matter how he looked at it, he should not be a match for her. However, ever since he had arrived in Rong and City, he had been defeated time and time again by Bailey Hongzhuang. Now, he no longer had his initial drive. On the contrary, whenever he saw Bailey Hongzhuang, he would lose his confidence. Di Sudong's face was also dark. He did not know what to do now either. He had thought that his plan this time was flawless and that there would be no problems at all. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had actually cracked it. "Let's go back first and think of something else," Di Sudong said in a deep voice. "Second uncle, I think that Bailey Hongzhuang is really difficult to deal with. Now that she has the Blazing Flame sect and Cheng Zhonghao's support, I think that we won't be able to take revenge at all, right?" Devao's looked dispirited. He had failed again and again. Now, he didn't want to see Bailey Hongzhuang anymore. It was too much of a blow. He even felt that instead of continuing to stay here, he might as well go back. It was better than being treated as a joke by everyone. Di Sudong naturally understood Devao's mood. In the past, Devao's had always been full of confidence. How could he be like now? To a cultivator, self-confidence was extremely important. Without self-confidence, it would be extremely detrimental to his future cultivation path. However, it was too embarrassing to go back like this. "Wu Zhe, don't be disheartened. The reason why we can't deal with Bailey Hongzhuang here is because her helpers are here. It's normal that we can't deal with her. In a few days, the Raging Flame School will arrange for their cultivators to go out and train. That is a very good opportunity for us. Wentao's death is still unclear. We can't not avenge him." Hearing Di Wentao's name, Devao's expression turned serious. He nodded heavily and said, "Yes, we can't just leave like this. We still have to avenge Wentao." Seeing Devao's expression, Di Sudong finally relaxed. He couldn't just go back like this. Otherwise, his clansmen would definitely say that he didn't do a good job. He would only have the face to go back if he achieved his goal. After walking for some distance, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen realized that the people from the Di family didn't chase after them. They couldn't help but look at each other and smile. It seems that they came here today for nothing else but to find out if the poison on the spirit stones worked. Chapter 4379. The Di family has been attacked time and time again, so their morale is no longer the same as before. When I saw Devao's just now, I realized that his eyes were no longer as sharp as before. No wonder he's been so well behaved recently. Di Beichen's eyes sparkled with wisdom. He had not missed out on Devao's performance just now. With just a simple glance, he had already discovered the problem. "That's a good thing." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Speaking of which, she really did not have the time to deal with the Di family now. The two of them strolled around the streets of Rong and City for a while before slowly walking back to the Fiery Flames sect. They spent most of their time cultivating and wanted to relax when they had the time. However, when they arrived at the Fiery Flames sect, they realized that the atmosphere around them was a little strange. The disciples in the sect were all looking at them strangely and whispering to each other. However, their voices were so soft that they could not hear them clearly. "What's going on?" Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Although there were many people who talked about them on a daily basis, it was obvious that something else had happened. However, the two of them had just returned from outside and had not stayed in the sect at all. What could have happened? "Let's ask Wanyan Han and the others." Di Beichen looked calm. They could not afford to panic at a time like this. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. It seemed that all the cultivators in the sect already knew about this. She believed that Wanyan Han and Yi Haomiao, who were well informed, would definitely know as well. However, just as the two of them were walking in, Yi Haomiao's figure happened to appear in front of them. When he saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Wan Yanhan, Yi Haomiao's eyes lit up and he immediately rushed over. "I've finally met you! Haomiao, what's going on?" Di Beichen asked in a low voice. "The vice president of the Holy Light Assembly came just now. I really have to hand it to this old woman. Why does she have to target you again and again?" Yi Haomiao's face was filled with disgust and confusion. He immediately recounted what had happened. After she came, she went to find the sect master and threatened to have the sect master chase you and Beichen out. "This woman keeps calling me scum. Her words are very unpleasant." Yi Haomiao frowned. "I really don't know what's wrong with this vice president. No matter what, he's still the vice president of the Radiant Sacred Assembly. I'm speechless." After hearing all this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen couldn't help but look at each other. At this moment, they finally understood why everyone was looking at them with such strange gazes. It turned out that this was the reason. Looks like Gong Tianfeng came to the Raging Flames sect after leaving the restaurant. Di Beichen's eyes were cold as a cold light danced in the depths of his eyes. "This woman really doesn't like me. Not only did she not allow me to join the Holy Light Assembly, now she wants the Raging Flames sect to chase me out. She really thinks she's so great." Her ink-black phoenix eyes were filled with disgust. She hated people who thought too highly of themselves and thought too highly of themselves. "I can't understand this vice president's thoughts either. Hongzhuang, you're really unlucky to have offended her. It's said that old women who can't get married are the most troublesome." Sigh. Chapter 4380. "No." Yi Haomiao shook his head. "I only saw the vice president leave after looking for the master. Until now, the master hasn't said anything and Steward Wu hasn't said anything either. Now, everyone is guessing what the master's decision will be. After all, the Radiant Sacred Assembly is quite powerful. If the vice president insists on targeting you, this matter will be difficult to handle. Don't worry. Since the master hasn't said anything, it means that he won't chase us out." Di Beichen's extraordinarily handsome face was calm and certain. His long and narrow eyes were bright and wise as if they could see through everything. "How can you be so sure?" Yi Haomiao was startled. He had been anxious about this matter the entire time. Di Beichen was the person involved in this matter. If he was chased out of the Blazing Flames house, it would be terrible. However, Di Beichen was acting as if nothing had happened. This was simply too incomprehensible. Di Beichen chuckled when he saw Yi Haomiao's puzzled look. If the master really planned to chase us out, he would have announced it the moment Gong Tianfeng suggested it. Only then would he be able to achieve the best result. Now that Gong Tianfeng has left, the master hasn't said anything about it. This proves that he won't do it. Beichen is right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently. When it came to people in power, they always knew when to maximize their benefit. Clearly, the master didn't think that a single sentence from the vice president was worth chasing them out. "My master is an inscription master of the Blazing Flames house. Although he's a disciple in name, his identity as an inscription master is also very obvious. Gong Tianfeng may be a member of the Radiant Sacred Assembly, but she hasn't been of much help to the Blazing Flames house. How could the master chase my master out because of Gong Tianfeng?" Baisher couldn't help but ask. Yi Haomiao came to a realization when he heard Baisher's words. He stroked Baisher's head and smiled. "Baisher, you're really smart. You've even understood this." "Of course. Then we can rest assured. That old hag really thinks she's so great. She actually dared to interfere with our House of Raging Flames business." Yi Haomiao smiled faintly. He finally let out a sigh of relief. However, in the next second, Yi Haomiao's expression changed. "Oh no, I was so focused on talking to you that I forgot about Wan Yanhan." "What's wrong with senior brother Wan Yan?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked in confusion. "Wan Yanhan and I wanted to inform you as soon as we found out about this. However, you weren't in the Raging Flame School, so we couldn't find you immediately. Wanyan Han told me to stay here and wait for you guys. He really couldn't take this lying down. He has already gone to the Radiant Sacred Assembly to reason with the Vice President. Let's hurry over and take a look. I think that Vice President isn't some kind person either. If Wanyan Han suffers because of this, that would be terrible. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's expressions changed when they heard Yi Haomiao's words. They never thought that Wanyan Han would be so daring as to go to the Radiant Sacred Assembly alone to reason with them. It would be terrible if he was hurt because of this. Let's hurry over and take a look. Chapter 4381. The members of the Holy Light Assembly were also surprised by Wanyan Han's sudden appearance. After he arrived, he immediately announced that he was looking for Gong Tianfeng. Gong Tianfeng happened to be in the main hall. When she saw that someone was looking for her, she came out to find out what was going on. However, when she found out Wanyan Han's purpose, her expression immediately turned ugly. I know that you're the Vice President of the Holy Light Assembly and have an extraordinary status. However, you've been targeting my junior sister over and over again. Don't you think it's a little too despicable? Looking at Gong Tianfeng, Wanyan Han's eyes were burning with rage. No matter what, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were his junior brothers and sisters. Since they were here, he had an obligation to take care of them. He did not have much ability in the face of a colossus like the Holy Light Assembly. However, he could not tolerate the fact that the other party was pushing him to his limit. Not only did he not allow Bailey Hongzhuang to join the Holy Light Assembly, he even wanted to make Bailey Hongzhuang leave the Raging Flames sect. Until now, he had never seen an elder go so far. Despicable. Gong Tianfeng chuckled. I don't like her. So what if I want her to disappear from Rong and City? Young man, I advise you to go back and stay there. Otherwise, if you make me unhappy, I'll make you leave with her. You're simply despicable and shameless. Wanyan Han's anger surged. Don't think that you're so great just because you're the Vice President of the Holy Light Assembly. Just the fact that the Holy Light Assembly hired someone like you to be its Vice President is already a huge failure. Gong Tianfeng's face was gloomy. She was a reputable figure after all. Being pointed at and scolded by Wanyan Han in front of the Holy Light Assembly like this, she was also embarrassed. Leave now. Otherwise, don't blame me for not showing mercy. The cold voice was full of threat. Gong Tianfeng was obviously angry. Most importantly, the nearby passers-by were looking at them. Those looks of disbelief made her feel very unhappy. Look, the Vice President of the Radiant Sacred Assembly has been stirring up a lot of trouble recently. I've already heard that after the conflict at the restaurant, the Vice President went to the Blazing Flames sect and asked them to kick Bailey Hongzhuang out. That's why Bailey Hongzhuang's senior brother came here to fight for justice. The Holy Light Assembly is more peaceful when the President is around. When the President is not around, this Vice President is completely running amok. Everyone shook their heads. Their impression of the Holy Assembly had always been very good. However, their impression of the Holy Assembly had changed after Gong Tianfeng's recent actions. Unless you change your mind, I won't leave just like that. Wanyan Han's attitude was firm. Even if Gong Tianfeng's status was not ordinary, they also could not allow Gong Tianfeng to continue bullying them like this. After all, a person in a high position should be reasonable. Looking at Wanyan Han's unyielding attitude, Gong Tianfeng's fury surged. Since you don't know how to appreciate favors, then don't blame me. In the next moment, Gong Tianfeng raised her hand and prepared to attack Wanyan Han. Wanyan Han was also prepared. Even though he knew that the other party's strength was far above his, he still had no intention of giving up. Chapter 4382. Hearing this familiar voice, Gong Tianfeng stopped what she was doing and looked at the person who had come. As expected, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had both appeared. Her expression was cold and her eyes were filled with disgust. As juniors, you have no respect for me at all. Do you expect me to treat you well? Gong Tianfeng, you're the one who came looking for trouble with us today. Originally, I didn't want to bother with an annoying person like you, but you provoked us first. After failing to provoke us and being scolded by other cultivators, you went to the Blazing Flames sect to look for trouble with us. You're already so old. Do you know how to write the word shame? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were burning and her voice was loud and sharp. She had seen many annoying people, such as Di Sudong. However, at least Di Sudong had an irreconcilable enmity with her. However, this woman in front of her was targeting her for a groundless reason and was abusing her power. It was fine if she was a real villain, but the most disgusting thing was this kind of person who pretended to be righteous on the surface but was doing shady things behind the scenes. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's merciless words, Gong Tianfeng's expression turned even uglier. Some of the cultivators who didn't know the situation looked at Gong Tianfeng differently after hearing all this. It was really hard to imagine that the vice president would do such a thing. Not only that, but the cultivators of the Holy Light Assembly also felt embarrassed. Usually they were praised by others. They didn't expect the vice president to do such a thing that didn't fit her status. It had affected the entire Holy Light Assembly's image. I don't like you, so I'm going to chase you away, Gong Tianfeng said angrily. There are many people in this world who don't like me. Who do you think you are? Bailey Hongzhuang was furious. This person was simply shameless. As long as you dare to appear in my sight, I'll never let you have a good time. No matter which force you join, I'll get them to chase you away. In short, as long as I, Gong Tianfeng, am here, I'll make sure you have no place in Rong-An City. Gong Tianfeng's gaze was vicious. At this point, she was too lazy to say anything else. What she wanted was for Bailey Hongzhuang to regret it. Vice President, as long as you're still alive, you can't be too full of yourself. Leave some leeway for us to meet again in the future. If you're too aggressive, I'm afraid it won't do you any good. Di Beichen's eyes flashed with a cold light. You're just the vice president of the Radiant Sacred Assembly. Behind you is the president. He's the one with the most authority. Aren't you being a little too confident with your words? Hearing this, Gong Tianfeng smiled disdainfully. I've already said this much. What can you do? In this Radiant Sacred Assembly, who dares to refute my words? In short, if I don't let Bailey Hongzhuang join the Holy Light Assembly, she can't join. If I want her to disappear from Rong-An City, she has to disappear. What if the president says no? Di Beichen had a look of dissatisfaction on his face. You rejected him for such a weird reason. The president might not be like you. So what if the president is here? You don't have to hope that the president will agree. If I say it's impossible, it's impossible. What arrogance! Bailey Hongzhuang sneered. You're just a vice president. You don't even put the president in your eyes. Chapter 4383. If she's not qualified, then I'm qualified, right? As soon as Gong Tianfeng finished speaking, a low and deep voice suddenly rang out. Hearing this familiar voice, Gong Tianfeng's expression suddenly changed and she hurriedly turned around. When she saw the person behind her, her face instantly turned pale and cold sweat suddenly appeared. She hurriedly bowed. President. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the approximately 50 years old elder in front of her and her eyes flashed with a trace of astonishment. The man was wearing a gray-green robe and had an extraordinary and majestic bearing. At this moment, his eyes were filled with anger as he looked at Gong Tianfeng. Next to the president, Cheng Zonghao stood impressively and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a faint smile. She was secretly surprised. Previously, didn't Cheng Zonghao say that the president would only be back in 2 days? Why did he suddenly come back? Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look at Di Beichen. Just now, Di Beichen suddenly led the topic to the president. Could it be that he already knew that the president was back and deliberately set a trap for Gong Tianfeng? Seeing the president's dissatisfied look, it was obvious that he was angry. Gong Tianfeng was so arrogant just now and completely did not put the president in her eyes. Presumably, she was going to be in trouble now. Facing Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze, Di Beichen's lips hooked into a trace of an evil smile and winked at her. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. It seemed that her guess was not wrong. Indeed, it was Di Beichen's trap. Vice President, I didn't think that in just a short period of time, the entire guild would be turned upside down by you. Looking at your arrogance, I should give up the position of president to you, right? Zhuo Hongyan's eyes flashed with a cold light and his voice was gloomy and filled with pressure. Gong Tianfeng's back turned cold, and she couldn't help but look at Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang with resentment. At this point, how could she not understand that it was Bailey Hongzhuang who had deliberately set up a trap for her to say such outrageous words? Especially Di Beichen, this guy completely saw through everything. He knew that it would not be easy to deal with her, so he wanted to kill her with a borrowed knife. She knew it. Darkness attribute cultivators were all black-bellied. They were good at using others to do their dirty work. Guild leader, I definitely didn't mean that. I was just spouting nonsense out of anger. Please don't take it to heart. Hee. Zhuo Hongyan sneered. If you don't have any thoughts in your heart, even if you're talking nonsense, you wouldn't say something like that. Gong Tianfeng's expression was extremely ugly. No matter how she explained, it was obviously useless. What she had said before had completely angered Zhuo Hongyan, and it would not be easy for her to redeem herself. As the vice president, you are standing outside the door and arguing with a bunch of juniors. What is this? Zhuo Hongyan was very unhappy. He just happened to come back first today. If he had not come back early, he would not have seen this scene. Usually, Gong Tianfeng was very capable and obedient under his command, but he never thought that she would be like this behind the scenes. Previously, when Cheng Zonghao told him about it, he did not quite believe it. Now, he understood everything. Guild leader, they were the ones who started it. Gong Tianfeng defended herself. I've heard about what you've done on my way here. I have my own judgment on who's right and who's wrong. As the vice president, the entire Holy Light Assembly's image has been ruined by you. Chapter 4384. After being scolded by Zhuo Hongyan, Gong Tianfeng was dumbfounded. She opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but she didn't know how to explain herself. Her words earlier had already made Zhuo Hongyan extremely displeased. Presumably, no matter what she said now, it wouldn't change Zhuo Hongyan's mind. The more she said, the more mistakes she would make. If she continued to quibble, it might worsen Zhuo Hongyan's impression of her. Thinking of this, Gong Tianfeng could only endure Zhuo Hongyan's anger. President Zhuo, this is Bailey Hongzhuang that I've mentioned to you before. Cheng Zonghao's face was filled with an amiable smile. Her talent is at the maximum level. Although there are some impurities, I believe that her future achievements will not be bad. To tell you the truth, there aren't many juniors that I admire, but Bailey Hongzhuang is one of them. Listening to Cheng Zonghao's words, Zhuo Hongyan's eyes also fell on Bailey Hongzhuang, and a smile suddenly appeared in his eyes. So you're Bailey Hongzhuang. Greetings, President Zhuo. Bailey Hongzhuang bowed. Zhuo Hongyan nodded slightly. Along the way, Master Cheng has been praising you. I've known him for so long and I know his temper very well. Among the younger generation, you're the only one who can receive such praise from him. I believe in his judgment. Thank you, President Zhuo. Thank you, Master Cheng. Bailey Hongzhuang said humbly and secretly exchanged glances with Cheng Zonghao. She appreciated his kindness. Let's go in first. It's really inconvenient to stand outside with so many people coming and going. Zhuo Hongyan smiled faintly and brushed past Gong Tianfeng. Clearly, he didn't want to bother with her. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the others entered the Holy Light Assembly, Gong Tianfeng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a venomous gaze. She had heard that Cheng Zonghao wanted to recruit Bailey Hongzhuang, but she hadn't expected him to think so highly of her. He had even come to the Holy Assembly for Bailey Hongzhuang just to put in a good word for her in front of President Zhuo. Greetings, Guild Leader Zhuo. As soon as Zhuo Hongyan appeared, the cultivators of the Holy Light Assembly bowed respectfully. After Zhuo Hongyan nodded, everyone returned to normal. Master, it seems that this President Zhuo has a very high reputation in the Radiant Sacred Assembly. This situation is completely different from when Gong Tianfeng was here. Xiao Hei's eyes sparkled with excitement. Initially, she was worried that the president might be in cahoots with Gong Tianfeng. However, judging from the current situation, that did not seem to be the case. Gong Tianfeng does things based on her own preferences. She doesn't make any sense. We're all smart people. Naturally, we won't respect such a person from the bottom of our hearts. It's normal for such a situation to occur. That's great. Now that President Zhuo is back, the vice president won't be able to do things based on her own feelings. Immediately after, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were arranged to the side. Zhuo Hongyan had just returned and there were still many things he needed to understand. At the very least, he needed to understand more about how to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang before he could make a decision. Cheng Zonghao also left. Before he left, he gave them a look, indicating that he would take care of everything and there was no need to worry. Little junior sister, I didn't expect your relationship with Master Cheng to be so good. Master Cheng has been speaking up for you. Chapter 4385. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Grandmaster Cheng is indeed a good person. Senior brother Wanyan, it's too dangerous for you to come here alone to reason with Gong Tianfeng. Di Beichen's expression was grave. If they hadn't come at the right time, the consequences would have been unimaginable if Gong Tianfeng had attacked Wanyan Han. With Gong Tianfeng's character, he didn't doubt that she would have killed him if they had fought just now. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression also turned grave. Beichen is right. Senior brother, you were too impulsive just now. This is related to your safety. Although there was some blame in his words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were touched. Wanyan Han was willing to disregard his own safety for them. It was clear that he truly cared for them. Hearing their words, Wanyan Han smiled and shrugged his shoulders. Isn't everything fine now? The vice president's previous actions were too much. If we had allowed her to continue causing trouble, your position in the Raging Flames school would have been in jeopardy. I had to stop her. Senior brother, thank you. Bailey Hongzhuang's pitch-black eyes sparkled with gratitude. Her voice was gentle, but she remembered Wanyan Han's kindness in her heart. You're all really unpredictable. Yi Haomiao sighed. My heart almost jumped out of my chest when I followed you. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but smile when they heard Yi Haomiao's words. Their actions were crazy in many people's eyes, but they were slowly closing the gap between them. This vice president isn't a good person. With her around, it won't be easy for you to join the Radiant Sacred Assembly. Even if you do join, I'm sure she'll find ways to stop you. Wanyan Han frowned. He hadn't met Gong Tianfeng before, but he knew a little about her from other people. After meeting her today, he realized that she was a completely unreasonable woman. Everything he said to her was nonsense. If it wasn't for the fact that little junior sister needed the cultivation method of the light attribute, it would have been better if she didn't join the Holy Light Assembly. I know. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent, but the light in her eyes became sharper. She will indeed try to stop me, but I can also think of a way. Just like today, wasn't she also tricked by us? As long as we continue to fight, it's hard to say who will emerge victorious. Her delicate and perfect face was overflowing with confidence, and her pair of beautiful eyes were sharp. Facing Gong Tianfeng, she was not afraid at all. The worst that could happen was to leave the Holy Light Assembly. This woman couldn't think of any other way. As long as Hong Zhuang can obtain the light attribute cultivation method, it's already a good thing. As for the rest, it doesn't matter. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a gentle expression. Currently, the biggest obstacle was the lack of cultivation methods. As for the rest, it was nothing more than cultivation resources. On the contrary, they didn't care about this the most. Wanyan Han, don't worry. Look at how insightful Di Beichen and Hong Zhuang are. In fact, I also think that they're right. As long as we can obtain the cultivation method, we don't care about the rest. No matter how bad it is, it won't be worse than now. On the contrary, if we cause trouble and make Gong Tianfeng unhappy, then it'll be considered as interest. Chapter 4386. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were waiting, Xiao Rojin walked in from the outside. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, Xiao Rojin's expression froze. She blinked, as if wondering if she had seen wrongly. After confirming that she was not mistaken, Xiao Rojin couldn't help but walk over and pretended to be concerned. Junior Sister Bailey, why are you here? I've already heard about what happened in the sect before. The vice president has such a temper, but you coming here now will only make things worse. Why don't I think of a way to help you ask? You should go back first. No need. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled lightly, but she sneered in her heart. If Xiao Rojin really wanted to help her, with her relationship with Gong Tianfeng, it would have already had a certain effect. How could it be getting worse and worse like now? Junior Sister Bailey, I'm doing this for your own good. You should know the vice president's power. If she doesn't want you to stay in Rong and City, she can definitely do it. It's not a wise decision for you to go against her like this. As she spoke, Xiao Rojin couldn't help but look at Di Beichen, her eyes rippling. Junior brother Di, you should stop Junior Sister Bailey. Di Beichen glanced at Xiao Rojin lazily and said indifferently, Senior sister, you don't have to worry about this matter. President Zhua has already returned and is now dealing with this matter. As soon as these words came out, Xiao Rojin couldn't help but be stunned. What did you say? Senior Sister Xiao, although the vice president's power is not small, in Rong and City, there will always be people with higher status than her. For example, President Zhua, don't you think so? Yi Haomiao chuckled, but there was coldness in the depths of his eyes. Xiao Rojin nodded with a slightly embarrassed expression. Yes, that's great. I'll go take a look at the situation. It would be best if I could help Junior Sister Bailey. Looking at Xiao Rojin's somewhat flustered back, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. Senior Sister Xiao is really busy every day. Hongzhuang, don't believe this Xiao Rojin. Her gentleness and kindness may have fooled many people, but she couldn't fool us. One of the people I knew before was her follower, so I have a good understanding of her character. If I really believe that she is as gentle and kind as she appears to be, then it will be over. Yi Haomiao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and reminded her seriously. I understand. Just as Xiao Rojin was about to go upstairs, Zhua Hongyan and the others came down. At the same time, Gong Tianfeng also walked out from the other side. Previously, Zhua Hongyan had asked others to understand what had happened during this period of time and did not ask her. At this moment, she also wanted to know what decision the president would make. Zhua Hongyan walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side with a face full of smiles and said, Miss Bailey, I formally invite you to join the Holy Light Assembly. As soon as this was said, some people were happy while others were worried. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Thank you, President Zhua. Cheng Zonghao, who was standing beside Zhua Hongyan, was also full of smiles. If he said that there would be no problem, there would naturally be no problem. President, Gong Tianfeng said in dissatisfaction, looking anxious. She had previously said that as long as she was in the Holy Light Assembly, she would not let Bailey Hongzhuang join. Now that the president had made such a decision, wasn't this a slap to her face? You don't have to say anything more. I already know the whole story. Zhua Hongyan's face was cold, and he did not intend to say anything more to Gong Tianfeng. President, but I have already rejected her joining. If you do this, I. Chapter 4387. Zhuo Hongyan's words shut Gong Tianfeng's mouth immediately. For a moment, Gong Tianfeng's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot, but she could only glare hatefully at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. Miss Bailey, you'll be a member of the Holy Light Assembly from now on. Don't worry, you'll be treated fairly here. I hope you'll have a good future. Thank you, President Zhuo. Bailey Hongzhuang bowed and thanked him. Zhuo Hongyan waved his hand. I just found out that Miss Bailey is already an inscription master at such a young age. Speaking of this, you're not simple at all. There's no need for you to bow to me. You're the president. It's only right for me to do so. The smile on Zhuo Hongyan's face widened. No wonder Master Qing keeps recommending you. You're really an excellent young man. After returning from the Holy Light Assembly, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were in a good mood. Did you see the vice president's expression just now? I tried my best not to laugh. It's just too funny, haha. Yi Haomiao couldn't help but laugh after walking some distance away from the Holy Light Assembly. His loud laughter caused Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to chuckle as well. I saw it. Thinking back to her arrogant face just now, I felt so relieved just now. Now that I've obtained the cultivation method of light energy, I don't have to worry about it anymore. Bailey Hongzhuang breathed a sigh of relief. Now that she had obtained the most important thing, she didn't have to worry about anything else. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. If you're unhappy to see Gong Tianfeng, you don't have to go to such a place. I'm fine. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. If I'm unhappy, she'll be even more unhappy than I am. As soon as they returned to the Blazing Flames Gate, Wu Wenfeng appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang, you already know about what happened just now, right? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Just as she was about to tell Wu Wenfeng about it, the latter spoke first. Don't worry, the sect master has already said that he won't pay any attention to that vice president. If you stay in the Raging Flames School, no one will be able to drive you out. You don't have to worry about this. Do you understand? Wu Wenfeng looked a little nervous, obviously worried that Bailey Hongzhuang would misunderstand. Manager Wu, thank you, sect leader, and thank you. I am now a member of the Holy Light Assembly. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was gentle. The situation was just as Di Beichen had expected, but she was still pleasantly surprised. What did you say? Wu Wenfeng was stunned. He only suspected that he had misheard. I said, I have already joined the Holy Light Assembly. How is that possible? Wu Wenfeng was dumbfounded. The vice president has always been against you. Why would he suddenly change his mind? President Zhuo is back. He was the one who asked me to join, so you don't have to worry about me anymore. I see. That's great. No matter what, Manager Wu, I am very grateful to you. Hee hee. Wu Wenfeng chuckled. Then I'm relieved. Cultivate well. President, you really didn't give us any face today. Gong Tianfeng looked at Zhuo Hongyan in front of her with a complicated expression. Chapter 4388. President, that's not what I meant. Gong Tianfeng defended herself. Her husband is a max-level dark attribute cultivator, and that's why I rejected her. Moreover, according to my understanding during this period of time, this Bailey Hongzhuang thinks highly of herself and doesn't know what modesty and politeness are. If she joins the Holy Light Assembly, she will definitely cause a lot of trouble. Vice President, whether you have any selfish motives for doing this, both you and I know very well. It's nothing more than the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang poking at your sore spot, so you're like this. However, I hope you understand that you are the Vice President of the Holy Light Assembly, and your purpose is to let the Holy Light Assembly have a better development and recruit young people with potential. This is our goal. I originally thought that you were already able to take charge, but now it seems that your ability is still not enough, so my original intention of recommending you to be the president has been dispelled. For the time being, you should just be the vice president. Following Zhuo Hongyan's words, Gong Tianfeng's expression suddenly changed. President, you can't do this to me. I want to rest, you can go out. President, get out. Not far away, Xiao Rojin looked at Gong Tianfeng, who walked out of the president's office, and her eyes became complicated and deep. Originally, Bailey Hongzhuang was unable to join the Holy Light Assembly, so she didn't take it to heart. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang had obtained the cultivation method of light energy, and the president seemed to think highly of her, if she didn't make more preparations, she was afraid that it wouldn't work. A max-level light attribute cultivator, I have to report this matter back to the family first. Xiao Rojin secretly decided. Their Xiao family had always produced light attribute cultivators, but other than the proud daughter of the main family who had reached the max level of talent, no one else had appeared. According to her understanding, the proud daughter of the main family wasn't really at the max level, but she was still lacking something, but everyone had already determined that she was the next Holy Light Assembly's Holy Light Assembly. Although this Bailey Hongzhuang had some impurities, according to everyone's judgment, she was at the max level of talent. If Bailey Hongzhuang could not cultivate the power of light, it would be fine. But now that she could, everything had changed. Therefore, she had to send this news back. Otherwise, if something went wrong, she wouldn't be able to bear the responsibility. After sending Steward Wu off, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen began to study the cultivation method of light energy. Looking at the cultivation manual in her hand, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I thought I wouldn't know when I would be able to get this cultivation method. I didn't expect it to be solved so easily. It's much better than I thought. Wife, you've always been a blessed person. Di Beichen smiled faintly and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang dotingly. Today's matter had finally allowed Hongzhuang to let out a sigh of relief. After flipping through the contents of the manual, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. Sure enough, no matter how many changes there are, it's still the same. After careful analysis, the cultivation method of light energy and darkness energy is still related. Immediately after, Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen, Bai Shi, and Xiao He began to try to cultivate the power of light. Ordinary cultivators only had one attribute, but they had two. Chapter 4389. If they did not put in double the effort, they would definitely not be stronger than cultivators of the same attribute. On the contrary, they might even be weaker. This was not a situation that they wanted to see. Time passed very quickly while they were cultivating. In the blink of an eye, night had fallen. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had converted the origin energy in their bodies into light energy, she, Di Beichen and Bai Shi were shocked to find that their dantians had been occupied by black and white. Originally, these two types of origin energy should be completely opposite. However, at this moment they were both in their dantians. Not only did they not show any signs of conflict, on the contrary, the two seemed to be fusing into one. Noticing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were somewhat puzzled. According to the common understanding of the world, these two types of energy are completely opposite. Why would they fuse into one in our bodies? Her ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with a thick light of confusion. It had to be said that this situation was somewhat illogical and could not be understood at all. Di Beichen was also deep in thought. Perhaps everyone's understanding of light and darkness are not completely opposite. Perhaps things will move in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme. Sometimes, such an unexpected situation will occur. However, it's a good thing that there is no conflict. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Previously, I was worried that these two types of energy would clash with each other in our bodies. When that happens, our bodies would become a battlefield. Just thinking about it, I know how uncomfortable that situation would be. I never thought that it would be so natural. I think it's very likely that the cultivators in the past did not know about this. Or perhaps someone knew but did not mention it. After all, there are not many cultivators who possess both the darkness and light attributes other than us. Perhaps there are none at all. Bachen's voice was low and his eyes were filled with wisdom. All of this was a new discovery that they had made. What you said makes sense. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Let's continue to cultivate. Once we have a better understanding of these two powers, perhaps we will know more. However, while Bailey Hongzhuang and Bachen were talking, Xiao He and Xiao Bai wailed at the same time. Upon hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately turned to look at Xiao He and Xiao Bai. Xiao He and Xiao Bai were lying limply on the ground. They were clutching their heads with both hands, and their expressions were hideous. It was obvious that they were in great pain. Xiao He, Xiao Bai, what's wrong with you guys? Bailey Hongzhuang's face was quickly filled with worry. She didn't understand why such a situation would suddenly occur when everything was fine just now. Master, my head hurts. Xiao He rolled on the ground. Her voice was extremely weak. In such great pain, it was extremely difficult for her to even speak. My head. Why did it suddenly become like this? I can't take it anymore. Xiao Bai's situation wasn't much better than Xiao He's. The intense pain seemed to come from the depths of their souls, making it impossible for them to hide. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly stepped forward and grabbed Xiao He's hand. She began to examine it carefully. Wife, what's the situation? Master, how are they? Bachen and Bai Shi asked in concern. This sudden situation was simply too worrying. Chapter 4390. It's so strange. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Xiao He's pulse is normal. There's nothing wrong with it. It's the same for Xiao Bai. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's judgment, Bachen also frowned. He naturally believed in Bailey Hongzhuang's judgment. Then, the problem lay with Xiao He and Xiao Bai themselves. Could the situation this time be similar to the last time Xiao Bai appeared? Bachen asked. Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it and nodded. It's possible. However, Xiao Bai's pulse was very strange last time. But this time, there's nothing wrong with their pulses. I can only say that although they feel intense pain now, it has no effect on their bodies. According to what you said, the problem should lie with Xiao He and Xiao Bai themselves. Wife, you still don't know why they appeared in the Chaos Ring, and you don't know what kind of contract beasts they are, right? I really don't know why they appeared in the Chaos Ring, and I don't know when they appeared. However, I already know their names now. They are the Black and White Light Spirit. This is the information I got from the White Dragon. However, the White Dragon's own memory is not very complete. When I asked her about the details, she was already confused. Bailey Hongzhuang spread her hands. It was not easy to find the White Dragon, but in the end it was still useless. It was really a pity. Perhaps this incident is also an opportunity for number 1 high school. Bachen said slowly. After Xiao Bai's situation last time, she formed a contract with me. This time, Xiao He and Xiao Bai have headaches at the same time. There should be a reason for this. When they calm down, we may find out the connection. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently. However, there was still some sympathy in her eyes when she looked at Xiao He and Xiao Bai. From their expressions, it was obvious that they were in extreme pain. An hour later, Xiao He and Xiao Bai fell into a coma. Bailey Hongzhuang checked them again and found that they were indeed not in danger. Everything was normal. After such an incident, they were not in the mood to continue cultivating. They just stayed by Xiao He and Xiao Bai's side, waiting for them to wake up. They were in a coma. They were unconscious for 3 days. When Xiao He and Xiao Bai woke up, they saw Bailey Hongzhuang, Bachen, Bai Shi, and Xiao Xuanzi as soon as they opened their eyes. How do you feel? Bailey Hongzhuang asked with concern. Xiao He and Xiao Bai looked at each other and suddenly said, We've recovered some of our memories. The 2 people and 2 beasts were stunned when they heard this. They looked at Xiao He and Xiao Bai in surprise. What did you say? Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. Recovered some of your memories? Xiao He and Xiao Bai nodded in unison. Yes, we know the cultivation method. In the next moment, Xiao He and Xiao Bai explained their situation in detail. After listening to everything, everyone finally understood. After the previous pain, some of their lost memories came back. These memories included the cultivation method of the light and dark powers. Chapter 4391. According to what you've said, Xiao He and Xiao Bai's attributes should have been fixed long ago. That's why they have such memories in their minds. However, these two completely contradictory powers mean that they were taught by two cultivators of different attribute. But why are Xiao He and Xiao Bai together? Bailey Hongzhuang had a complicated expression on her face. After understanding all of this, the situation behind this seemed even stranger. Could it be that everything had been fixed in the unseen world? Or Xiao He and Xiao Bai's previous master had already calculated the future? If that was the case, then it was a little too terrifying. I think your guess is right. Di Beichen's voice was slightly heavy. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's previous master was probably not simple. He mastered the cultivation method of the two attributes of darkness and light. Perhaps he was a dual attribute cultivator like us. If that's the case, perhaps this was the reason why the Chaos Ring chose you as its master. I believe that a divine artifact would not choose a master so casually. There must be a reason behind this. Bailey Hongzhuang fell silent. She originally thought that her transmigration was just an accident. However, according to Di Beichen's analysis, it seemed that there were many things that they did not understand at all. If that's the case, the secret of the Chaos Ring was only revealed after we came to the upper realm. That's possible. Di Beichen nodded. Wife, you don't have to worry. I believe that Xiao He and Xiao Bai must know what happened in the past. Although they've only recovered a part of their memories, since they've begun to recover, it means that they might remember everything in the future. When that time comes, we'll definitely know the truth. At this moment, Xiao He and Xiao Bai also nodded repeatedly. Master, we'll try our best to remember. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and patted the two little fellows' heads. Don't break your heads over this matter. It's not a big deal. We'll find out sooner or later. What's the big deal if it's a little later? Anyway, we are all doing well now. Even if we don't know, it doesn't matter. Xiao He and Xiao Bai leaned against Bailey Hongzhuang and happily rubbed against her. We knew that master is the best. Since you've thought of the cultivation method in your minds, then tell us about it. We'll see if there's any difference. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. Xiao He and Xiao Bai were contracted beasts from many years ago. Their memories might be different from now. What I remember is exactly the same as what Master said. There is no difference. Little White looked at Di Beichen and took the lead to speak. What about Xiao He? The content that I remember is different. Then, Xiao He began to recount everything that it remembered. After listening to everything, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen couldn't help but look at each other. They immediately noticed the difference. I'm afraid that this is the true cultivation method of the power of light, Bailey Hongzhuang said. That's right. Xiao He's description sounds more complete. In comparison, the cultivation method that we're seeing now seems to be a simplified version. According to what you said, Beichen, the inheritance of darkness that you previously obtained is indeed the true essence. Bailey Hongzhuang was relieved. The inheritance was the same as the one in Xiao Bai's mind. It was obvious that it was the inheritance of the origin. Chapter 4392. No, this isn't a coincidence. Bailey Hongzhuang's jet-black eyes flickered with a lively luster as she spoke with certainty. Previously, she still could not understand it. However, after learning that Xiao He and Xiao Bai had regained part of their memories, she finally understood. What do you mean? The reason Xiao He and Xiao Bai have regained part of their memories is because the power in their bodies has already transformed into the power of darkness and light. From the moment they completed the transformation, part of their sealed memories began to recover. I believe that their memories have been sealed. Only by encountering some opportunities can these seals be broken. If we can find these opportunities in the future, I believe that Xiao He and Xiao Bai will gradually remember everything that happened in the past. She had heard of such situations before. However, she did not expect it to happen in front of her eyes. However, just from this method alone, she could tell that Xiao He and Xiao Bai's previous master was not an ordinary person. I see. Di Beichen understood. In that case, it's only a matter of time before they regain their memories. 7 days later, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others officially received a notice to head to the demonic dragon abyss for training. Little junior sister, junior brother Di, we're leaving today. Have you prepared everything? Wanyan Han smiled. Ever since the matter of Bailey Hongzhuang joining the Holy Light Assembly was resolved, he had nothing to worry about. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. We're all ready. That's good. There are a total of 50 cultivators going on this trip. It's quite a large number. You can come with me and Yi Haomiao so that we can take care of each other. No problem. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other and smiled. Although they were familiar with many of the cultivators going on this trip, they basically did not have any friendship with them. They could encounter danger at any time in the demonic dragon abyss. Under such circumstances, it was best for them to be with someone they could trust. Seeing the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen, everyone's expression suddenly became a bit complicated, and more of them became envious. This Bailey Hongzhuang is really amazing. Even the vice president of the Radiant Sacred Assembly said that she wouldn't be allowed to join. I didn't expect her to become a member of the Radiant Sacred Assembly in the end. I really admire her now. She's simply a genius. I thought she wouldn't have a chance in the future. Who would have thought that things would turn around in the end? Life is truly unpredictable. I've asked around. It's all because of Master Cheng's help. Fortunately, Bailey Hongzhuang had a good relationship with Master Cheng. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to join the Holy Assembly. No way. In the blink of an eye, Bailey Hongzhuang became the envy of everyone again. Master, these people's opinions change so quickly. They were laughing at you before, and now they're envious of you. Xiao He couldn't help but shake her head and sigh. The human world was really complicated. The most difficult thing to understand was the human heart. There are a lot of people in this world who are easily swayed. Don't pay attention to them. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm and indifferent. She had long been used to these things. No matter how others looked at her, she didn't care. After everyone gathered, Wanyan Han, as the leader, led everyone in the direction of the demonic dragon abyss. The demonic dragon abyss was located in a mountain range not far from Rong'an City. However, it was a relatively special area. Chapter 4393. The group of 50 people set off. Due to the large number of people, they were divided into 5 groups of 10 people each. Wanyan Han was the leader of the group. Other than him, there were 4 other vice leaders. This expedition to the demonic dragon abyss had too many people. The possibility of exploring together was not high, so it was more convenient to split into 5 groups. Just as the cultivators of the Inferno School were moving, the cultivators of the other forces were also moving. There was an unfamiliar situation in the demonic dragon abyss. Perhaps there was an opportunity, or perhaps it was hell. Everyone was filled with curiosity. I heard that apart from the Inferno School, the cultivators of the Azure Dragon School also set off on the same day. However, they took a different route from us. He must have taken a different route on purpose. Otherwise, we might have fought on the way. Haha, that's true. We have always been on bad terms with the Azure Dragon School. As long as we meet, we will inevitably cause trouble. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walked in the group. Her gaze immediately fell on Xiao Rojin, who was not far away. Xiao Rojin is the vice leader this time. It seems that senior brother Wanyan is really valued in the Inferno School. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen. She originally thought that if Xiao Rojin joined, the leader would definitely be her. Xiao Rojin has such a position because she is a cultivator of the light attribute. Secondly, it is because of the Xiao family behind her. In terms of combat strength and leadership, senior brother Wanyan is more outstanding, Di Beichen said slowly. You are right. Even when she is out training, Xiao Rojin is still like the moon surrounded by stars. Speaking of which, there are probably many people in her small group who exist to protect her. If something happens to her, the Inferno School will be in trouble. The Xiao family was not a small family like the Di family. Just the Di family alone would be troublesome, let alone a huge family like the Xiao family. Even if Xiao Rojin was only a member of the Xiao family's branch family, she was backed by the real Xiao family. The Inferno School would definitely not dare to offend her. Actually, it's just a show. If she wants to maintain her position in the House of Raging Flames, she naturally has to participate. Di Beichen looked indifferent. He had never felt anything for Xiao Rojin. As long as the other party did not provoke them, it did not matter. This time, Steward Wu wanted you to be the vice-captain. Why did you refuse? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and looked at Di Beichen. Before they were about to set off, Steward Wu had specially communicated with them about this matter. Although Di Beichen had just joined the House of Raging Flames, everyone knew of his strength. There was no problem for him to become the vice-captain. I'm not interested in such a thankless task. The corners of Di Beichen's lips curled up slightly. If I have the time to lead a team, I might as well train with you alone. It'll save me the trouble. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. I've heard that many cultivators have racked their brains to fight for the position of vice-captain. I didn't expect you to have no interest at all. If this were to spread, I'm afraid many people would be speechless. They all want to develop well in the House of Raging Flames, so they are racking their brains. However, neither you nor I have such plans, so why should we fight with them? Chapter 4394. You're right. If we don't fight for these benefits, we'll have less trouble. Bailey Hongzhuang was also a clever person. Naturally, she understood what Di Beichen meant. The reason they stayed here was to wait for Xiren, Ao Lingxiao, and the others to arrive. As long as they met up with Xiren and the others, they would leave Rong and city. I wonder what realm Xiren and Yingying have broken through. I really hope they can break through to the Starlight realm as soon as possible. Then, they'll be able to meet up with us. Bailey Hongzhuang's pretty face revealed some longing. Unknowingly, they had been in the upper realm for some time. When they separated by accident, she had long gotten used to having them by her side. Now that it was just her and Di Beichen, she felt that something was missing. With Xiren and Yingying's talents, it should be soon, Di Beichen said after some thought. Right now, I just hope that they can arrive at Rong and city directly. That would be the best situation. Otherwise, it won't be easy to meet up with them. Xiren and the others are smart people. Since I can find you, I believe they can find us as well. It'll just take some time. Di Beichen's thin rose-colored lips curled up. He and Xiren had been brothers for so many years, so they knew each other very well. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. That's great. The group rushed all the way to the demonic dragon abyss. Along the way, they also met some small teams that were also exploring the demonic dragon abyss. However, compared to their huge team, they were not worth mentioning. Even in the mountains, the monsters seemed to know that such a huge team was not easy to bully. They did not even attack them. Under such circumstances, the group's speed was also extremely fast. However, as they got closer and closer to the demonic dragon abyss, they discovered that a dark aura was gradually becoming more obvious. This demonic dragon abyss is filled with the aura of dark power. Could it be that the dark power here is awakening? The upper realm of the dark side has been silent for a long time. Some of the places that appeared in the past have been cleared out by everyone. Logically speaking, it shouldn't appear again, right? That's not necessarily true. There have always been a lot of dead people. If the power of darkness appears in this place, then these things can easily turn into skeletons. It's said that this was the case in those places in the past. Everyone couldn't help but frown when they noticed the increasingly gloomy environment. This kind of place really made people feel uncomfortable. Of course, except for D. Bachin and the others. Back when I was in the lower plane, I also felt very sad when I first headed to the training grounds. But now, looking at this situation, I don't feel that way at all. Bailey Hongzhuang turned her head to look at Di Beichen. At this moment, she actually felt very comfortable in this kind of environment. Moreover, the dark attribute energy in the air was constantly fusing into her body. Her cultivation method automatically circulated, and her cultivation speed was much faster than usual. This should be because we've awakened the darkness attribute, Di Beichen said slowly. The dark attribute energy in my body is circulating much faster. My power is quickly filling up, and I'm in an excellent state. Originally, after such a long journey, their state should have been slightly affected. However, after arriving here, he found that his state was rapidly recovering. Chapter 4395. From the looks of it, this should be the advantage of attribute awakening. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. Before their attributes awakened, they would not have any advantage in this place filled with dark aura. Now that they were here, their strength had increased by quite a bit. If they had already awakened their talents when they were in the lower realm, then their performance in the training grounds would definitely be much better than before, and they would not be forced to come to the upper realm. Master, but my strength is suppressed here. Xiao Hei's little face fell as it spoke faintly. It was the only one with the light attribute here. Ever since it came here, it felt that its aura was suppressed, and this feeling was much more uncomfortable than outside. As Xiao Hei's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other, and immediately understood the situation better. Attributes can be restrained. When there is more of a certain element in the surrounding environment, the opposite element will be restrained. Di Beichen's voice was low and magnetic. Many questions could be understood just by thinking about it carefully. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. According to this, if we have these two opposing attributes at the same time, doesn't that mean that we won't be suppressed? Di Beichen nodded. You can say that. In a place filled with other elements, although it will increase the strength of cultivators of the same attribute, our strength will not be affected or restrained. Then this is a huge advantage. Although this point did not seem to be useful for the time being, in some specific environments, this was a huge advantage. Now, only Xiao Xuanzi has not awakened its talent. I wonder what attribute Xiao Xuanzi will have. Will it have the same dark attribute as Master? Xiao Bai looked at Xiao Xuanzi at the side. This little guy's strength had not been long since it was born. Although its strength had improved tremendously, it was still some distance away from them. Fortunately, Long Yanwei had helped Xiao Xuanzi speed up its growth. It would not be long before it could awaken its talent. There is such a possibility. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. When the time comes, Xiao Xuanzi will definitely awaken his talent together with Yingying and the others contracted beasts. After Xiao Rojin felt the dark aura of the demonic dragon abyss, her face became very ugly. She did not expect the environment of the demonic dragon abyss to restrain her so much. In this place full of dark aura, she could hardly feel any light element. Her strength's recovery was extremely slow, and she felt uncomfortable all over her body. Although the other cultivators felt a little uncomfortable, it was only a feeling. In fact, it was not much. Xiao Rojin could not help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang at the back. However, she found that Bailey Hongzhuang's as if she did not feel the attribute suppression here. She slowly walked to Bailey Hongzhuang's side, her face full of concern. Junior sister Bailey, us light attribute cultivators are suppressed here. You should also feel uncomfortable, right? This is very normal. You don't have to hide it. Later, you will stay with the team. Don't put too much effort into the exploration because our light energy recovers very slowly here. We won't be able to replenish it. Chapter 4396. Senior Sister Xiao is really gentle and kind. She's so nice to the new junior sister. I wonder who will be able to pursue Senior Sister Xiao. That would be such a blessing. Indeed, Senior Sister Xiao and Junior Sister Bailey are both favored by the heavens. It's just that Junior Sister Bailey is already married, but Senior Sister Xiao is not. As long as you can pursue her, you will have a meteoric rise from then on. In this situation, only Di Baichen is the most comfortable among us. He is of the darkness attribute, so he is naturally the most comfortable in this place. Speaking of which, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen are really not suitable. One is comfortable, and the other is uncomfortable. For a moment, everyone looked at Di Baichen with complicated gazes. The darkness attribute was originally an attribute that was despised by everyone. Looking at the desolate darkness around them, they couldn't help but feel depressed. Bailey Hongzhuang found that after Xiao Rojin said this, everyone actually began to ostracize Di Baichen. She couldn't help but frown. Although Xiao Rojin hadn't provoked her so far, the words she had caused at this moment were enough to make her unhappy. Senior Sister Xiao, I don't feel uncomfortable. I'm already used to such an environment when I was in the lower realm. Bailey Hongzhuang's cold voice was filled with alienation. She looked at Xiao Rojin coldly. As soon as these words came out, Xiao Rojin's expression couldn't help but change a little. How can that be? How can it not be? Bailey Hongzhuang asked back. Senior Sister Xiao, do I look like I'm uncomfortable? Hearing this, everyone's gazes couldn't help but fall on Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Rojin. With this look, everyone found that, as Bailey Hongzhuang said, she didn't look uncomfortable at all. On the contrary, Xiao Rojin's discomfort was written all over her face. This is strange. Both of them are of the light attribute. How can their reactions be so different? Maybe it's because Senior Sister Xiao has always been spoiled and rarely goes out. This is her first time coming to a place like this, so she's not used to it. Perhaps it's because Senior Sister Xiao's attribute talent isn't as good as Bailey Hongzhuang's, so the situation is different. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang's attributes are maxed out. This is naturally different from ordinary cultivators. Xiao Rojin looked at the smiling face in front of her. She really wanted to tear it apart. Originally, she just felt that she was a little uncomfortable and felt that she had lost face. She wanted to use Bailey Hongzhuang to find a way out. She didn't expect that Bailey Hongzhuang would not only not give her a way out, but also leave her hanging. However, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance, she did not seem to be uncomfortable at all. On the contrary, it seemed that everything here did not affect her at all. Seeing this, Xiao Rojin looked at her gloomily and thought, if you have the ability, keep pretending like this. I don't believe that you will be completely unaffected in such an environment. The more indifferent you act now, the more embarrassed you will be when you are exposed later. Xiao Rojin left unhappily. Bailey Hongzhuang, on the other hand, looked at Di Baichen happily. Baichen, don't you think the environment here is very similar to a training ground? If only this was a training ground, then we could meet up with Yingying and the others. At this time, Wanyan Han also walked over. Junior sister, what are you talking about? We are talking about the environment here is very similar to the training ground in the lower realm. Chapter 4397. Following Wanyan Han's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen were confused. Senior, what do you mean? Actually, I heard it from someone else. Wanyan Han smiled, but his tone was uncertain. Isn't the entrance from the lower realm to the upper realm in the training grounds? In fact, I was just like you when you first came here. I wanted to go back and meet Wan Yanling. So, I also inquired about some information in this regard. I heard that the training grounds are directly connected to the upper realm, but the distance is very far, and the direction can't be determined. If you encounter a place like that in the upper realm, it's very likely that it's connected to the lower realm. Based on what you said, this place might be connected to the lower realm. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. If that was the case, then it would be great. Wanyan Han chuckled. Even if the two are connected, we can't reach the lower realm. No one knows how far the two places are. Moreover, it's such a big place, and we can't be sure of the direction. If I could, I would have gone back long ago. You're right. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Her pretty face had a trace of helplessness. If she could, she really wanted to meet up with Shangguan Ying and the others as soon as possible. Of course, there was also Ao Lingxiao. As long as Ao Lingxiao was there, they could also set off for the D family. They didn't have to stay here all the time. The demonic dragon abyss appeared suddenly, so we don't know what's going on. You guys must follow the team closely and don't act recklessly. There might be some unknown danger here. Wanyan Han warned. We understand. The group walked all the way into the demonic dragon abyss. The deeper they went, the thicker the dark aura became. Everywhere they looked was dark, but the surroundings were dead silent. Nothing existed. Previously, when they were outside, they met many other teams who were also exploring. However, as they went deeper into the abyss, the other teams gradually disappeared around them. Beichen, I don't know why, but I feel like someone is following us. Bailey Hongzhuang abruptly turned her head to look behind her, but there was nothing behind her. She frowned suspiciously. She had been having this feeling for quite a while, but she had never noticed it. Even she herself was a little doubtful whether this was an illusion or real. Hearing this, Di Beichen also looked behind him. It was really hard to hide in such a place. When did you start to feel this way? Di Beichen might not take it seriously if someone else said it, but he believed that Bailey Hongzhuang had such a feeling. It has been quite a while since we entered the demonic dragon abyss. There's clearly no one behind us, but I keep feeling like there are eyes staring at us. No matter what, we have to be careful. Di Beichen said in a low voice. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Okay. Xiao Rojin only felt more and more uncomfortable in such an environment. She quietly turned around to look at Bailey Hongzhuang, but found that the latter was just as she said before. Her expression was natural, as if there was nothing wrong at all. Chapter 4398. Xiao Rojin was full of doubts. She couldn't help but think of everyone's previous guess. Could it be that it was really like what everyone said, that it was because Bailey Hongzhuang's talent had reached the max level? It was said that cultivators with max-level talent would indeed be much stronger than ordinary cultivators. However, she wasn't very clear about where this was reflected in. According to this explanation, all of this was not impossible. If it was really like this, Xiao Rojin bit her lower lip. The dissatisfaction in her eyes became more and more intense. This Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely become an existence that would threaten her. The curtain of night slowly descended, causing the land that was already dyed black to become even darker. Everyone stopped one after another and found a place to sit down and rest. The area inside is getting larger and larger. If we continue to form a team, I'm afraid it will be difficult to investigate the situation here clearly. When dawn comes, let's split up. Wanyan Han looked at the other 4 vice-captains. The reason why so many of them came was so that it would be more convenient for them to split up later. Xiao Rojin and the other vice-captains nodded. It was not very convenient for such a large team to move. If they split up, everyone's speed would be faster. What's more, they came here to understand the situation of the demonic dragon abyss. On the other hand, it was a competition between several forces. If the Azure Dragon School's cultivators understood the situation here one step ahead of them, they would undoubtedly lose. This was not the result they wanted to see. Everyone has to be more careful tonight. The dark aura here is so dense. Skeletons may appear at any time. Wanyan Han looked at everyone. In terms of understanding of this kind of place, these cultivators from the lower realms might have a better understanding than others. It doesn't matter. Even if skeletons appear, how could we be afraid of those skeletons with so many of us? A vice-captain said indifferently. Skeletons are just some things that are already dead. How could they be compared to us living people? If they appear, I will directly crush them into powder. Another vice-captain also said with a smile. Seeing that they didn't care at all, Wanyan Han couldn't help but frown. He emphasized, I'm not joking. I know how powerful this skeleton army is. Once they appear, it will be very dangerous. Wanyan Han, don't be an alarmist. Our team has a total of 50 people. How powerful can those skeletons be? With so many of us gathered together, no matter what kind of skeleton it is, it won't be able to shake us. Don't think that you can throw your weight around just because you're the captain. Xiaorojin looked at Wanyan Han with displeasure. At this moment, she was extremely dissatisfied with Bailey Hongzhuang. Seeing that Wanyan Han and Bailey Hongzhuang had such a good relationship, her anger that could not be vented seemed to have found a breakthrough. As Xiaorojin's voice fell, the other cultivators nodded one after another. They only felt that Wanyan Han came from the lower realm and had not seen much of the world, so he was startled. Wanyan Han's complexion was livid. He did not expect that everyone was actually so unconvinced of him. Wanyan Han, don't bother with them. They don't put the skeletons in their eyes now, but when the skeleton army really appears, they will know how powerful it is. Yi Haomiao walked to Wanyan Han's side and patted his shoulder.